Welcome to Stairway to English. In this video, we will explore why Nicaea is so important for Christianity through 5 clear episodes. Listen and read along to improve your English while learning history. If you enjoy this lesson, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments.
Episode 1: The City of Nicaea and the Beginning of a Great Council. When we think about the history of Christianity, there are many cities that shaped its direction. One of the most important of these cities is Nicaea, known today as Iznik in modern Turkey. Nicaea was not a very big city compared to Rome or Constantinople, but it became famous because of the events that happened there. The city is remembered in Christian history as the place where leaders gathered to make decisions that affected the entire church. To understand why Nicaea is important, we must look at the time when Christianity was growing but was also facing many challenges. During the first 3 centuries after Jesus, Christianity spread quickly through the Roman Empire. Many people accepted the new faith, but there was also confusion and conflict about what Christians should believe. Different groups had different ideas about Jesus, his nature, and how the church should be organized. Some believed Jesus was completely divine, while others believed he was human, but chosen by God. These differences created arguments, and the church leaders wanted to bring unity. Without unity, the Christian community risked breaking apart into many smaller groups. In the early 4th century, the Roman Empire also changed. Emperor Constantine became the first Roman emperor to support Christianity. Before Constantine, Christians were often persecuted. They were sometimes arrested, punished, or even killed for their faith. But Constantine ended these persecutions with the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, which gave Christians the freedom to worship. This was a turning point for Christianity because now the church could grow openly without fear. Constantine himself wanted Christianity to be strong because he believed it could help unite his empire. However, he also saw the divisions between Christians and understood that they could cause trouble. To solve these problems, Constantine decided to call a great meeting of Christian leaders. This meeting is known as the First Council of Nicaea. It took place in the year 325 AD. Bishops from all over the empire traveled to Nicaea to discuss important questions about Christian belief. The council was the first of its kind, and it became a model for later councils. It showed that the church could gather together to decide on matters of faith. The city of Nicaea was chosen because it was close to Constantine's palace and was easy for leaders to reach. At Nicaea, the main question was about the nature of Jesus. A priest named Arius from Alexandria taught that Jesus was not eternal like God the Father. He said that Jesus was created by God and was not fully divine. This teaching, known as Arianism, had many followers, but it also caused strong opposition. Other church leaders argued that Jesus was fully divine, equal with God the Father, and eternal. The argument was not small. It was a serious debate that threatened to divide the whole Christian church. The Council of Nicaea was not only about theology, but also about unity and survival. Constantine wanted agreement so the empire could have peace. The bishops wanted to protect the truth of the Christian faith. In this council, discussions were long and sometimes heated, but in the end, the council rejected Arius's teaching and declared that Jesus is of the same substance as the Father. This decision was written in a statement of faith called the Nicene Creed. The Nicene Creed became one of the most important texts in Christian history. It expressed the belief that Jesus is truly God and truly man. Even today, Christians around the world recite versions of this creed in their churches. This is why Nicaea is remembered. It was the place where Christian leaders came together and agreed on what Christians should believe about Jesus. The First Council of Nicaea did not solve every problem, but it was the first step toward creating unity in the Christian church. It showed that decisions about faith could be made together and written down as shared statements. For Christians, Nicaea is not only a city in history, but also a symbol of unity, faith, and the courage to defend what they believe. This was the beginning of Nicaea's importance. In the next episodes, we will explore more about the details of the council, the influence of Constantine, the conflicts that followed, and how Nicaea's decisions shaped the future of Christianity for centuries.
Episode 2: Constantine and the Road to the Council. When we look at the story of Nicaea, we cannot forget the role of Emperor Constantine. Without him, there would not have been a council in the city. Constantine's story is connected to the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire, and his decisions changed history. To understand why Nicaea became so important, we need to understand why Constantine cared about the Christian faith and why he wanted unity among believers. Before Constantine, the Roman Empire was not an easy place for Christians. For almost 3 centuries, Christians were often treated as enemies of the state. They refused to worship the Roman gods and the emperor, which made officials suspicious. Some emperors ignored them, but others, like Emperor Diocletian, ordered harsh persecutions. Many Christians suffered and even gave their lives for their faith. Because of this, the early church grew with a sense of sacrifice and strength, but it also lived in fear of authority. Constantine was different. In the year 312 AD, before a great battle at the Milvian Bridge, he reportedly had a vision. According to some sources, he saw a sign in the sky, the Christian symbol of the cross, with the words, "In this sign, you will conquer." Constantine ordered his soldiers to place the Christian symbol on their shields. He won the battle and became convinced that the Christian God had given him victory. From that moment, he treated Christianity with respect and gave it protection. In 313 AD, Constantine, together with Licinius, issued the Edict of Milan. This declaration made Christianity legal in the empire. For the first time, Christians could build churches, meet openly, and spread their faith without fear of punishment. This was a dramatic change, and it allowed Christianity to grow faster than ever before. Constantine did not immediately become a Christian in every way, but he supported the church and gave it land, privileges, and security. However, Constantine soon saw that Christianity was not united. Different groups argued about the nature of Jesus and other teachings. These arguments were not small. They divided communities and caused tension in cities. The biggest problem came from the teaching of Arius, a priest from Alexandria. Arius taught that Jesus was created by God and was not eternal. Many people agreed with him, while many others rejected this idea. The empire was at risk of religious conflict. Constantine believed that religion could help bring stability to his empire. He had made Christianity legal, but if Christians were divided, it could lead to unrest. He did not want the new faith to weaken the unity of his empire. For him, the solution was simple: bring the leaders together and make them agree. This was not only a spiritual matter, but also a political one. Constantine wanted peace and order, and he believed unity in faith would help. That is why he decided to call a great council of bishops in 325 AD. He invited leaders from all across the empire to come to the city of Nicaea. The location was close to his palace in Nicomedia, and it was easy for many bishops to reach. Constantine paid for the travel and expenses of those who came. It was a clear sign that the emperor was serious about solving the problem. When the bishops gathered in Nicaea, Constantine himself attended the opening session. He sat among the bishops, not above them, and showed respect for their spiritual authority. At the same time, his presence reminded everyone that the unity of the empire depended on their decisions. The council was not just about theology, it was also about politics and the future of the empire. The Council of Nicaea became the first ecumenical council, meaning a council for the whole church. Never before had so many leaders come together to discuss their faith. There were around 300 bishops, along with priests and deacons, representing churches from different parts of the empire. For many, it was the first time meeting with Christians from distant lands. The gathering showed the size and diversity of the church in the 4th century. Constantine encouraged the bishops to put aside personal disputes and focus on unity. He wanted them to write a clear statement that all Christians could accept. He believed this would end the conflict and give the empire peace. Although the bishops had many disagreements, the pressure from Constantine and the importance of unity pushed them to work hard toward an agreement. In this way, Constantine played a central role in bringing the council to life. He was not a theologian, but he understood that faith had power. By supporting Christianity, he strengthened his empire. And by guiding the church toward unity, he shaped the future of the faith. His decision to call the council at Nicaea was one of the most important steps in Christian history. The story of Constantine shows that religion and politics were deeply connected in the ancient world. Nicaea was not just a city of faith. It was also a city where an emperor's vision for unity and peace became reality. This connection between church and empire would continue for many centuries. In the next episode, we will look at what happened inside the council itself. We will explore the debates, the arguments, and the decisions that created the Nicene Creed and gave Christianity a foundation that still stands today. Episode 3: Debates and Decisions at the Council of Nicaea. When the bishops arrived in Nicaea in 325 AD, the atmosphere was filled with tension and expectation. For the first time, so many leaders of the Christian church came together in one place. They carried with them the responsibility of deciding the future of their faith. Some came from far regions of the empire, traveling long and difficult roads to reach the council. Others came from nearby cities, but all of them knew this meeting was historic. The emperor had called them together, and the world was watching what they would decide. The central issue was the teaching of Arius. He was a priest from Alexandria who believed that Jesus, the Son of God, was not eternal like God the Father. Arius argued that Jesus had been created by the Father and therefore could not be equal to him. His famous phrase was, "There was a time when he was not." This teaching had spread widely, gaining followers in many cities. It seemed logical to some because it emphasized the greatness of the Father. However, many bishops feared that Arius' teaching denied the divinity of Christ and destroyed the foundation of salvation. On the other side, strong voices defended the full divinity of Jesus. Among them was Athanasius, a young deacon from Alexandria who later became a bishop. He argued that Jesus must be truly God if he was to bring salvation to humanity. If Jesus were only a creature, even the highest creature, then he could not bridge the gap between God and man. Only if Jesus shared the same divine nature as the Father could he save the world. This argument became central in the debates. The discussions were not calm and polite all the time. Ancient reports tell us that debates grew heated with loud voices and strong emotions. Some bishops even lost their tempers. They knew that the future of the church was at stake. Constantine himself attended some of the sessions. He did not try to control the theological debate, but he encouraged the bishops to come to an agreement. His presence was a reminder of how serious the meeting was. After long arguments, the bishops turned to the question of what words they should use to describe Jesus' relationship with the Father. The key word they chose was homoousios, a Greek term meaning of the same substance. With this word, the bishops declared that the Son is not created, but truly eternal and equal with the Father. This was a powerful rejection of Arius's teaching. It was a way of saying that Jesus is fully divine, sharing in the very essence of God. The decision was written down in a statement of faith known as the Nicene Creed. This creed was short but clear. It affirmed belief in one God, the Father Almighty, and in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, begotten, not made, of one substance with the Father. It also spoke about Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. And it ended with a statement about the Holy Spirit. This creed was meant to unite Christians around the world in one shared belief. Not all bishops agreed at first. Some supported Arius or were unsure about the new wording. But under pressure from the majority and the emperor, most eventually signed the creed. Only a few refused, and they were sent into exile. Arius himself was also condemned and removed from his position. The council's decision was clear. Arianism was rejected, and the church stood together in declaring the full divinity of Christ. The Council of Nicaea did not only deal with theology. The bishops also discussed practical issues of church life. They set rules about how bishops should be appointed, how to handle disputes between churches, and how to celebrate the date of Easter. These decisions showed that the council was not only about one question, but about building a stronger and more united church. The creation of the Nicene Creed was one of the most important events in Christian history. It gave the church a shared confession of faith that continues to be used in many churches today. When Christians recite the creed, they are repeating words that were first agreed upon in Nicaea almost 1,700 years ago. This shows the lasting power of the decisions made in that city. Still, the story was not over. Even after the council, debates continued. Some emperors supported Arianism again, and the church faced more struggles in the years that followed. But Nicaea had set a standard. It showed that when the church gathered in council, it could define its beliefs and defend them with courage. The Council of Nicaea was more than just a meeting. It was a turning point in the history of Christianity. It defined the faith for future generations and gave the church a tool to remain united. The creed born in Nicaea became a foundation stone for Christian identity. This is why Nicaea is remembered not just as a city, but as a symbol of unity, courage, and truth. In the next episode, we will explore what happened after the council, how the debates continued, and how the decisions of Nicaea shaped the life of the church in the years that followed. Episode 4, After Nicaea, Struggles and Legacy. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD gave the Christian church its first shared creed and its first great statement of faith. It declared that Jesus was of the same substance as the Father and rejected the teaching of Arius. For a moment, it seemed as if the problems were solved. But history shows us that the years after Nicaea were not simple. The decisions made there did not end all debates. Instead, they created new battles, both theological and political. To understand why Nicaea is so important, we must look at what happened after the council and how its legacy developed. After the council, many bishops returned home, but not all of them were completely satisfied with the result. Some had agreed to the creed only under pressure from Constantine and the majority. Others still secretly supported Arius's ideas. In the years that followed, different emperors and church leaders took different sides in the debate. At times, Arianism regained influence, especially when emperors saw it as useful for unity in their own regions. The conflict continued for decades, showing that one council could not end all disagreements. Athanasius, the young deacon who had defended the full divinity of Christ at Nicaea, became one of the strongest voices for the Nicene faith. Later, he became the Bishop of Alexandria, and for most of his life, he fought against Arianism. Athanasius was exiled several times by emperors who opposed his views, but he never gave up. He believed that if Jesus were not truly God, then salvation itself was at risk. His writings and leadership kept the spirit of Nicaea alive, even in times when Arianism seemed to be winning. Constantine himself, after the council, continued to support unity, but he was also a political leader. He wanted peace above all, and sometimes that meant making compromises. In fact, near the end of his life, he allowed some followers of Arius back into the church. This shows how complex the situation was. Even the emperor who had called the council could not completely control the debates that followed. After Constantine's death in 337 AD, his sons ruled the empire, and the struggle over Nicaea continued. Some emperors supported Arianism, while others supported the Nicene faith. The church was divided, and bishops often found themselves in conflict with the state. Councils were called again and again to try to resolve the disputes, but agreement was hard to reach. At times, it seemed as if the decisions of Nicaea would be lost. Yet, over time, the Nicene Creed became stronger. By the end of the 4th century, with the help of leaders like Basil of Caesarea, Gregory of Nazianzus, and Gregory of Nyssa, the Church defended and explained the creed in greater depth. These men, often called the Cappadocian Fathers, helped Christians understand not only the relationship between the Father and the Son, but also the place of the Holy Spirit. Their teaching prepared the way for the Council of Constantinople in 381 AD, where the Nicene Creed was confirmed and expanded. From that moment, the Creed became the official statement of Christian faith across the empire. The years after Nicaea also showed something new in history: the close relationship between church and state. For the first time, a Roman emperor had called a council of bishops and played a role in church decisions. This created a pattern that would continue for centuries, especially in the Byzantine Empire. Some Christians welcomed this, believing that the support of the emperor protected the church. Others feared it, worrying that politics would interfere with faith. This tension between church and empire became a lasting issue in Christian history. Nicaea also left its mark in other ways. The decision to celebrate Easter on the same date across the empire was made there, and this helped create unity in worship. The council's rules about church organization also shaped the way bishops and local churches worked together. In this sense, Nicaea was not only about theology, but also about practical life in the church. The struggles after Nicaea remind us that faith is not something decided once and for all in a single meeting. It must be defended, explained, and lived out in every generation. The leaders who stood for the Nicene Creed showed courage and faithfulness even when they were exiled or opposed by powerful emperors. Their story teaches us that truth is often costly, but it is worth defending. When we look back today, we can see that Nicaea was the beginning of a long journey. It was not the end of debates, but the start of a process that gave Christianity its central beliefs. The Nicene Creed still stands as a witness to the decisions made there. It unites Christians of many traditions around the world, from east to west, from Catholic to Orthodox to many Protestant churches. Even after centuries, the words of Nicaea continue to be spoken in churches and remembered by believers. In the next episode, we will explore the lasting importance of Nicaea for Christianity today. We will see how the creed and the memory of the council continue to shape faith, worship, and the identity of Christians around the globe. Episode 5: The Lasting Importance of Nicaea for Christianity. Today, when Christians around the world gather in their churches, many of them still speak the words that were first written at Nicaea in 325 AD. The Nicene Creed has been translated into hundreds of languages and is repeated in countless voices every week. This alone shows how lasting the impact of Nicaea has been. But the importance of Nicaea is not only in the creed itself. It is also in the way the council shaped the life, unity, and identity of Christianity across centuries. One reason Nicaea is important is that it gave the church a clear answer to one of the most difficult questions of faith. Who is Jesus Christ? Before Nicaea, Christians agreed that Jesus was the Savior, but they did not all agree on what that meant. Was he fully divine? Was he a created being? Was he equal to the Father? These questions caused division and confusion. The decision at Nicaea gave the church a foundation. Jesus is of the same substance as the Father, fully divine and eternal. This teaching became the cornerstone of Christian belief, protecting the faith from ideas that would weaken its message of salvation. Another reason Nicaea matters is that it showed the church could come together in council to decide its faith. Before 325, there had been local gatherings, but nothing on such a large scale. Nicaea brought bishops from across the empire, from east and west, to one city. It was a model of unity and cooperation. This pattern continued in later centuries as more councils were called to deal with new challenges. The tradition of councils gave Christianity a way to face disagreements not with violence, but with discussion and shared decisions. Nicaea also had a deep effect on Christian worship. The creed that was created there became not just a statement for bishops, but a prayer for all believers. When Christians say the Nicene Creed in church, they are not only remembering history, but also joining with the voices of those who came before them. It creates a connection between past and present, between the ancient church and the modern church. This sense of continuity gives strength to Christian identity. Nicaea's importance is also seen in its influence on Christian unity across traditions. Even though Christianity later divided into many branches, Catholic, Orthodox, and Protestant, the Nicene Creed remains a point of agreement. All these groups, despite their differences, look back to Nicaea as a common foundation. In a world where Christians are separated by culture, language, and tradition, the Creed continues to remind them of what they share. It is a symbol of unity that crosses barriers and centuries. Nicaea's story also teaches lessons about courage and faithfulness. Many of the bishops who defended the creed faced exile, pressure, or opposition. Athanasius, for example, spent much of his life fighting for the faith defined at Nicaea. His example shows that truth is not always easy to defend, but it is worth the struggle. Christians today can learn from this history that faith requires perseverance and strength, especially in times of conflict. The relationship between church and state, which began at Nicaea, is another reason why the council is remembered. Constantine's role showed that political power could support faith, but also that it could complicate it. The connection between empire and church brought protection, but also challenges. For centuries, Christians debated how closely the church should work with political leaders. The story of Nicaea reminds us that faith and power can never be fully separated, and that wisdom is needed when they come together. Even beyond Christianity, Nicaea has importance as a historical event. It was one of the first times in history when leaders from across a vast empire came together to discuss ideas, not just politics or war. It showed the power of dialogue, debate, and shared decisions. For historians, it is an early example of a global conversation where people from different cultures and lands gathered for a common purpose. Today, the city of Nicaea, known as Iznik in Turkey, still holds the memory of this event. Visitors can walk through its ancient walls and see the place where history was made. For Christians, it is more than just an archaeological site. It is a symbol of faith and unity. The name at Nicaea continues to inspire respect and reflection wherever the story of Christianity is told. In the end, the importance of Nicaea is not just about the past. It is about the present and the future. Every time the Nicene Creed is spoken, Nicaea is remembered. Every time Christians unite around shared beliefs, the spirit of Nicaea is alive. And every time believers struggle to defend their faith with courage, they walk in the footsteps of those bishops who gathered in 325 AD. Nicaea reminds us that faith is not only about personal belief, but also about community, history, and truth. It shows that decisions made in one city long ago can shape the lives of millions across the centuries. This is why Nicaea is important for Christianity and why its story must continue to be told.